this was day 907 of the Trump administration, and the president is defiant and unapologetic following his attack on 4 elected members of Congress. All are Democrats, all are women of color, all are U.S. citizens. On Sunday, he appeared to go after Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, and Rashida Tlaib when he posted, "So interesting to see progressive Democrat congresswomen who originally came from countries whose governments are a complete and total catastrophe, now loudly and viciously telling the people of the United States, the greatest and most powerful nation on earth, how our government is to be run. Why don't they go back and help fix the totally broken and crime-infested places from which they came? Then come back and show us how it's done." Speaker Nancy Pelosi said Trump's outburst, quote, "reaffirms his plan to make America great again has always been about making America white again." Then this morning, the president went there again. Quote, "When will the radical left congresswoman apologize to our country, the people of Israel, and even to the office of the president for the foul language they have used and the terrible things they have said? So many people are angry at them and their horrible and disgusting actions." Peter Baker analyzed the outburst for the New York Times. Quote, "His assumption that the House Democrats must have been born in another country or that they did not belong here, if they were, fits as an us against them political strategy that has been at the heart of Mr. Trump's presidency from the start. Heading into next year's election, he appears to be drawing a deep line between the white, native-born America of his memory and the ethnically diverse, increasingly foreign-born country he is presiding over, challenging voters in 2020 to declare which side of that line they are on." Well, during a Made in America event at the White House today, the president, armed with notes, including his own special spelling of al-Qaeda, went there again.
And all I'm saying that if they're not happy here, they can leave. They can leave. And you know what? I'm sure that there'll be many people that won't miss them. I look at Omar. I don't know. I never met her. I hear the way she talks about al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda has killed many Americans.
Are you
but
okay
these are
with
people
thinking your
quiet,
tweets are racist,
quiet,
Mr. President?
Quiet.
Are you okay with people
Quiet.
thinking your tweets are racist, sir?
Quiet.
It doesn't concern you that many people saw that tweet as racist and that white nationalist groups are finding common cause with you on that point.
It doesn't concern me because many people agree with me. These are people that hate our country. Hey, John, they hate our country. They hate it, I think, with a passion. Now, it's possible I'm wrong. The voter will decide.
So that was on the White House lawn, and hours later, the 4 members of Congress spoke on Capitol Hill.
The recent tweets and words from the president are simply a continuation of his racist and xenophobic playbook.
He's launching a blatantly racist attack on 4 duly elected members of the United States of House of Representatives, all of whom are women of color. This is the agenda of white nationalists. This is his plan to pit us against one another.
All of this is a distraction. It's a distraction from what's most important and from our core values as American citizens.
I encourage the American people and all of us in this room and beyond to not take the bait. This is a disruptive distraction from the issues of care, concern, and consequence to the American people.
The president couldn't resist live tweeting that event. Quote, "The Dems were trying to distance themselves from the 4 progressives, but now they are forced to embrace them. That means they are endorsing socialism, hate of Israel and the USA. Not good for the Democrats." With that, and here for our leadoff discussion on a Monday night, Ashley Parker, Pulitzer Prize-winning White House reporter for The Washington Post, Annie Carney, White House reporter for The New York Times, and Aaron Haynes-Wack is back with us, national writer covering race and ethnicity for the Associated Press. Good evening and welcome to the 3 of you. Ashley, I'd like to begin with you. This has now dominated, give or take, 48 hours worth of news cycles. How are they feeling about this deep in Trump land?
Well, a couple ways. It's first worth noting that in talking to people inside the White House today, one thing they said was this does not feel like the aftermath of Charlottesville. It is not that sort of core shaking issue inside the building. There is some frustration, but a lot of the frustration is kind of twofold. One is that they were enjoying the Democrats fighting and feuding with each other, and they felt like the president stepped in and gave Speaker Pelosi an off-ramp and helped her unify her caucus. And they were also frustrated that they felt like the president, he clearly went too far, but they sort of felt like had he not gone too far and had he not ceded the moral high ground, there was actually a compelling argument they could have made using some of those Democratic lawmakers' comments on Israel to do what the president tried to do in that final tweet and paint them as sort of socialists and, far too left and kind of paint Democrats with that broad brushstroke. And again, they felt like by making this comment that was racist, which is not a word they use, he ceded the moral high ground. And then today was basically what was supposed to be cleanup. He walked out there with those notes. That was intentional. They wanted the president, and the president himself wanted to expand on and clarify his comments. But after he did those sort of 8 to 10 minutes on the South Lawn, some aides said that wasn't quite the cleanup and the explanation they were hoping for.
And Annie Carney, speaking of the cleanup in aisle 2, I'm going to play two things for you and our audience. We'll talk about them on the other side. First is Mark Short on the North Lawn of the White House. The second is the Secretary of the Treasury from today.
I don't think that the president's intent in any way is racist.
How is it not racist to tell women of color to go back to their countries when most of them were born here anyway, and they're all U.S. citizens?
Kristen, he has an Asian woman of color in his cabinet.
Do you find the president's tweets racist, and what do you make of white nationalists praising those tweets?
Again, I think the president, I don't find them racist. The president just went on and clarified his comments. I think he speaks for himself on that, and he was very clear. But again, we're focused on cryptocurrencies.
So, Annie, just to review there, the president has an Asian woman of color in his cabinet, and the Treasury Secretary would much rather focus on cryptocurrencies. Tell us about your reporting regarding Trump's staff. And as a subset of that question, is this another one of those times we're going to learn that Jared and Ivanka were on vacation?
No, well, I asked Ivanka specifically for comment today, and she declined to comment, which is notable. Again, if we're comparing this to Charlottesville, which was almost 2 years ago, next month it will be 2 years, she at that time put out a statement condemning white supremacy outright, which was a notable break from what her father had failed to do. This time she's silent, no tweets, no statement, declined to comment when I asked her today. But what we saw from aides today was privately, I talked to more than half a dozen current and former White House officials who said that it was a hard statement to defend what Trump had said. They understood why it was being seen as racist, even if they wouldn't call it such. But like Ashley said, not the kind of soul searching we saw after Charlottesville, where we saw Gary Cohn, who was at the time Trump's top economic advisor, actually publicly condemn the remarks and draft a resignation letter that he ultimately didn't send to the president, but he was close to actually making a move because of what the president had done. Nothing like that happened in the White House today. No aides condemned what Trump said. Mark Short tried to offer a defense there, pointing to Elaine Chao. Pointing to one person is never a strong defense in the face of a charge of racism. But I think what Mark Short was trying to do there was not to steer the conversation away from a global conversation about whether or not Trump is racist, and say he was speaking specifically about Omar and other members of the Democratic Party who are seen as progressive and problematic for their specific views. And then what we saw with Steve Mnuchin there, who notably was an aide who defended Trump after Charlottesville, was a hard no, he's not racist, but we want to talk about other things. Mnuchin was kind of caught today because he had this briefing on cryptocurrency and he couldn't avoid a question on Trump's tweets. So this was another example of these racist flare-ups put aides in a very awkward position where they are forced to defend the president even when they privately wish he hadn't said what he said.
And Aaron, for you, I have two reactions that aired on cable television tonight, which we'll discuss on the other side.
Donald Trump is at it again, as he was in 2016. He has nothing to offer. Therefore, he is going to create division and hate for political expediency purpose. I am saddened but not surprised.
I get calls every day saying, go back, Mohammed lover. This is something that lots of Americans experience every single day. And that's why I think this is getting a resonance in the way others do.
Aaron, I talked at the top of the broadcast about old tropes, which, come to think of it, is probably exactly redundant. They're tropes because they've been around for a while. These are no less hurtful or damaging or familiar to millions of Americans, and that's why they had instant resonance, correct?
That's absolutely correct, Brian. Good evening. It's good to be with you. And what I will tell you is that I spent my day talking to several Americans who, have gone throughout their lives hearing from people, go back to where you came from. Muslim Americans, Latino Americans. In fact, I would venture to say that probably, these 4 congresswomen who were targeted by the president it's probably not the first time that they heard go back to where you came from, although, certainly they probably didn't expect to hear that from the President of the United States. But this is certainly an old trope that is now, reappearing in the national conversation because of the president's tweet. And listen, this is also not new for this president, as we know. I mean, he entered the modern, his modern political career began with him questioning President Barack Obama's citizenship. His campaign launched, with him talking about Mexicans as rapists. And, we saw him going to a racial playbook that was effective for him in 2016, in 2018. And it certainly seems to be something that he is going to be headed into 2020 because we know that it is something that works. As he said today in the Rose Garden, there are many people that love what I said, and I think that is certainly true. He is right about that. There are people who are definitely in agreement with his remarks, and not just evidenced by his retweets, but by the support that he continues to have. And so, just as he has targeted folks like California Congresswoman Maxine Waters, in previous elections, I think that he's already identified Representatives Ocasio-Cortez, Presley, Tlaib, and Omar as folks that he can target to, really energize his base headed into the next election.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.